In today's video, I'm going to talk about 5 things that I'm hoping get added to Baldur's Gate 3 before the game's full release. This video is going to focus on features and things that are currently not in the game at all, nor do we have any idea if they will be added or not. So this would exclude talking about the missing player handbook classes and races and things of that nature. I'm also going to try to keep this particular list fairly reasonable, as these are additions that are not necessarily easy to implement, but I think they are reasonably fair to ask for. For more Baldur's Gate 3 content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm getting closer to that silver play button, so thank you guys so much. Let's jump right in. Number 1, the dodge action. Those of you who don't play D&D or have not played D&D video games like Stadia, you may have never heard of the dodge action. The dodge action is an action where your character will focus entirely on avoiding attacks at the cost of course, your action. The 5e description reads as, until the start of your next turn, any attack roll made against you will have disadvantage if you can see the attacker, and you also make dexterity saving throws with advantage. So in simple terms, you sacrifice your action to become a hell of a lot harder to hit. The main reason why I think dodge would be a nice addition to Baldur's Gate 3 is because I feel like we need some more defensive options in this tactical party-based type of game. This would add another element of strategy to your combat encounters, and it can set up for some really fun, intense situations. Dodge was implemented in the fairly recent indie CRPG called Stadia, and it worked really well in my opinion. It allowed me to feel truly defensive at times with my more tanky characters, and when one of my squishies got caught in a bad situation, I always had the ability and option to give them something defensive, as opposed to just being hopeless. Having dodge will also make less of your turns feel like they are wasted. If there's nothing offensive that you can do that you think will make an actual impact, instead of feeling like you're wasting a turn, put your character into dodge. This may feel more satisfying than shooting at an enemy that may be hidden in the shadows. Now we do have to consider a couple things because Baldur's Gate 3 is different than Stadia, and it's different than D&D 5th edition in some ways also. In Baldur's Gate 3 you can take a potion or drink a potion with your bonus action. So if you can drink a potion and dodge, perhaps that might be a little bit too powerful. I'm not entirely sure, and Larian would of course have to play around with ways to ensure that the game maintains its balance. And one more thing, it doesn't necessarily have to be dodge for all the characters. Your characters that are using a shield could perhaps enter some form of defensive stance. Number 2, a way to speed up combat. Now I don't want anything crazy here, and I don't even want the option to be able to do an entire combat encounter in 4x the speed. But there's no denying that some combat encounters in this game can feel excruciatingly slow at times, and I do find myself many times avoiding them at all costs. The Goblin Camp, Myconid Colony, the Zentrum Hideout, to name a few. Now there's probably several possible solutions to this problem, and I'm sure that some of you guys have great ideas, so please put them below in the comments. Obviously, Larian could implement a button or an option that we could toggle or hold down that makes the enemy AI move at even 1.5x the speed. I've also heard people bring up the idea of having the enemy AI move at the same time if they're next to each other in the initiative order. Or if not at the exact same time, at least have them overlapping a little bit. This is already an option for your own party if you're playing multiplayer with your friends, and you find yourself next to one of them in the order of turns, so I can certainly see it being done with the enemy AI. I'm not sure what the correct solution is here, and I'm not sure what would feel the best without killing the immersion of the game, but I do know that I dread a few of the combat encounters now, and those combat encounters have the potential to be some of the craziest, most intense battles in the game. Let me know your thoughts and ideas below in the comments. Number 3, flying, and in small lettering, climbing. Flying and climbing are 2 movement options that are not in the game right now, but I think if they were added, it would certainly make our experience better. If I wild shape into a dire raven, I really don't want to jump the raven to its destination. I'd much prefer to watch it fly. It just doesn't feel right watching this weird mixture between jumping and flying. The fly spell is a level 3 spell that I would assume is going to be implemented into the game at some point. and we can already find a potion of flight in the Underdark, which does not work the last time I checked. But seeing this potion, of course, leads me to believe that the fly spell will in fact be in the game. And because of that, I'm really hoping that we get to actually fly. Climbing, on the other hand, is not as important to me, but I will say that calling in a spider companion and then watching that spider jump everywhere, sure, it might make sense with some types of spiders, I think most of us would appreciate watching creatures that typically climb things actually climb. I am inclined to believe that Larian already has plans on making flying look like actual flying, but I do also worry a little bit that it might stay as this weird long jump, so I decided to include it in this video. This next one may perhaps be a little divisive, but after thinking about it, I do think that a dye system, or some way to alter the appearance of your character's apparel and armor, would go a long way for many players. I certainly do not want this to turn into a full crazy transmogging system like you can see in World of Warcraft. I would prefer that in a game like Baldur's Gate 3, a system like this would remain somewhat believable and grounded and really stick to the lore of the world. That obviously is just my personal preference. In a game like Baldur's Gate 3, you might find armor or robes in the beginning of the game and still be using that same armor 30 hours later. The armor system works a bit different in D&D than what many gamers who don't play D&D might be used to. You're not constantly finding upgraded armor every time you kill a mob. And since this is such an RP heavy game, offering players a way to make the armor that they have or are somewhat stuck with actually look good on their character, I think will add a lot of value to the game. Now, ways to do this? Well, maybe we could meet a tailor at some point who offers some purchasable dyes, or perhaps an armor smith who wants to join our camp, or maybe he's in the city. The armor smith may allow you to pay to have the gems removed in the Githyanki armor, and he could hammer out some of the plates, giving you a more traditional knight's look without altering the base stats of that armor. I think there's many ways to do this, and I would be interested in seeing Larian's ideas in early access if this is something that they think would be good for the game. Number 5. Toll the Dead. Clerics unite. We need the Toll the Dead cantrip, and the sooner the better. Right now, clerics don't have much in terms of damage-based cantrips that are good, let alone fun to use. Sacred Flame is just about it, and I think Sacred Flame alone has probably caused some refunds. Toll the Dead is a cantrip which is also on the Wizard and Warlock spell list, but it's currently missing in the game, and it's a really good cantrip. The addition of it will likely make the biggest impact on the Cleric class, making it much more fun when you're out of those precious spell slots. Toll the Dead in 5e reads as, you point at one creature you can see within range, and the sound of a dolorous bell fills the air around it for a moment. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or take 1d8 necrotic damage. If the target is missing any of its hit points, it instead takes 1d12 necrotic damage. So this would give us a cantrip that has the damage potential of 1d12 on a target that is not at full HP, which is really good, or 1d8 on a target that has full hit points. If the target succeeds on a wisdom saving throw, they of course won't take any damage, so there's always a risk in using it, just like a target won't take damage if they succeed on a dexterity saving throw when you're using Sacred Flame. Like I said, it is also on the Wizard and Warlock cantrip list, but this will be a huge help to the Cleric class specifically, and having a cantrip that is not a dexterity saving throw for damage adds some nice versatility to the Cleric class, and of course adds a lot to the fun. Sacred Flame will still have its uses against enemies that are prone, or enemies that have low dexterity modifier, or even perhaps enemies that are vulnerable to radiant damage. But with Toll the Dead, you now have something for those many other circumstances, and the Cleric becomes more of a beast. And that'll be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate those of you guys that stayed around to the end. I got plenty of other videos planned for the future where we'll talk about like crazy things that we might want to see, and then also just changes and alterations to things that are already present in the game. Make sure to leave your thoughts and ideas below in the video comments. Also feel free to leave your feedback over on my Discord server. Link to that is below in the video description, and I have an early access feedback channel on that server. I'll catch you guys on the next one.